Hello, I want to discuss with you a paper I'm writing that I feel kind of good about, although kind of worried as well. This is my first paper in academic paper in 8 years, but it's on Christianity in the Congo and how it's kind of a microcosm for Christianity in the world, and how I summarize that there are basically three types of Christians in the world, and especially in the story of the Congo and going on in the world, and I wanted to share this with you. Type 1 are those who cloak their evil deeds in acts of righteousness and try to look like good Christian men and women, all the while approving of abuse, crime, lusts, all the things of the world, all the bad things of the world, all the deeds of darkness that we're supposed to expose, not join in. And then 2 are those that don't partake in the abuse, don't take in the economic injustice, don't brutalize people, but they look the other way when it goes on around them, and they don't speak up for the good of the kingdom. They don't speak up against these things. And number 3 are those that, while spreading the word of God, spreading the great news about what he has done for us and what he's doing with us, they do that, but they also speak out against the cruelties, the injustices in the world. And I believe that those are the true shining light, and that's what you have to be a true Christian. I personally believe that the type 1 Christians are a minority, but a very vocal minority. I also believe the type 3 Christians are a minority, but trying to be a vocal one as well. The problem is, I believe it's the type 2 that, with their silence, allows a type 1 to get away with all the things that they do. And so I just want to discuss a little bit about what I found. In the early days of the Congo, when slavery the slave trade was really big. There was, and I mean, I'm talking, and I mean, it was Portugal was the country that settled, that came to the Congo. So they were Catholics. The Catholics would sell some priests sold their students to slavery, had concubines, African concubines, and there's one King Afonso, who was a native, who was baptized, who became a very, very devout defender of the faith, did not like what was going on and spoke out against it. And one of his letters I love: "In this kingdom, faith is as fragile as glass, because of the bad examples of the men who come to teach here, because the lusts of the world and lure of wealth have turned them away from the truth. Just as the Jews crucified the Son of God because of covetousness, my brother, so today he is being crucified." And doing this and speaking up against the traders who were trading things like things that his people really didn't need, asking more for teachers, pharmacists, and doctors. This earned him an attempt on his life on Easter Sunday in 1540. And I mean, it's kind of funny how one of the most devout Christians was a native that I found. And then you go into the Free Congo State period under King Leopold, a Catholic king again, a Catholic Belgium, and coming into the Congo as a guise for trade, but also as a guise of fighting the Islamic slavers, who were enslaving. The odd thing is, the Congo Free State became one of the biggest slavers. I mean, it was domestic slavery because it was only in the Congo in rubber and stuff like that. And I mean, the Stanley expedition, I mean, did so many. They murdered, they raped, they even blasphemed, telling the Ugandan king about the 11th commandment: honor and respect kings, for they are envoys of God. And then, but the thing is, it was Protestant emissaries who saw the abuse and helped the reform movement come about. I mean, there was like a trial with William Shepherd, who was sued for libel. It was a Catholic versus Protestant thing, which was very interesting. And then you go into the 1990s with Mobutu, who was a kleptocrat who was stealing from his people, and while his people starved, he had Mercedes, he had mansions, lived high on the hog, and who was one of his biggest backers? Pat Robertson. And he had a mining concern involved with that. In fact, it was working for this, doing search for my blog, that I found that he used Operation Blessing planes for his mining concern in Africa. And other than an article in the North Virginia Pilot that kind of went to Fortune magazine and went other places, the evangelical community did not say anything about this. And that's why I think a huge part of the evangelical community are type 2 Christians. They're not evil. They're not doing evil things. They're good, God-fearing, God-loving people, but they don't speak out against those that aren't. And then, you had Archbishop Manwenge and Presbyterian Shisenga, Shiyenki. Speaking out against the corruption. And then you had Pat Robertson and Jerry Falwell with their TV rallies basically saying that he's a good Christian leader, as well with Charles Taylor in Liberia, who came on TV and said, "I'm not your president, Jesus is." Well, if Jesus is your president, why do you have children's soldiers? Why do you use rape as a weapon? And why are you helping him, Pat Robertson? Oh, Freedom Gold. And so that's what? There's a crisis in Christianity. It's not a new crisis. It was going on in the abolition movement. It was going on in the civil rights movement, where you had, number one, those who would go to lynching parties on Saturday and go to church on Sunday. They were type 1. Then you have a vast people who just did nothing. And then you'd have the third type that had the Freedom Summers and had the protests and stuff like that. So what I ask you is, what type are you? 1, 2, or 3?